it's good to laugh. May we go on talking about what we have been seeing for the last two gatherings. I'm not at all sure that we are not making all that has been said into a kind of intellectual concept, a series of ideas or conclusions, and therefore they have become merely a series of ideas, a set of values, and something that one has to carry out in life. Desirable, perhaps worthwhile, and profitable. If we turn all these talks into that kind of thing, I'm afraid we should be missing a great deal. Because as we were saying, man has lived for millennia upon millennia, living in constant struggle, conflict, not only with himself, but with his environment, with his neighbor, whether he's very near or very far. And we have followed that pattern for centuries. And when one observes what is happening in the world, there must be an answer to all this. There must be a way out of all this. There must be a way where we can think globally, not as a group of individuals or sects or so on, but we are concerned with the whole of humanity. That humanity is you and I. We are not different from the humanity of India or China or Russia or America or here. We all go through the same struggle, same anxiety, same conflict, same kind of mischief, and so on. And as we said, we try to find out for ourselves the root cause of all this. And whether it is possible, having found the root cause, whether the mind is capable of dissolving the cause and therefore bringing about a different action in life. That's what we are concerned about. And if one may point out, we are talking over together, thinking together. That is, if we can approach this problem not from your point of view or from the point of view of the speaker, but to observe quite impersonally, without any tie to any particular belief, dogma, or person, then perhaps, which is possible, we can think together over these problems. The problem being why human beings who are lived so long continue in the same pattern, perhaps modified, perhaps little more knowledgeable, capable of meeting certain challenges, but basically he is what he has been for millennia. And we said the cause may be, the root cause of it, that every human being is trying to become something. Not only in the physical world, but also in the psychological realm, where he is trying or making tremendous effort to be or to become something. And we are saying that may be the root cause of all these problems. You may agree or disagree with this cause, the original cause. But if we can go into it together, not I tell you and you say, well, I'd agree or disagree, but together, if we could go into this very, very seriously and act, not merely verbally exchange opinions and ideas opposing each other, but if we could go beyond the word and act, that is it not so, I'm putting this question to you, that each one of us, in different way, is trying to be other than what he is, what he's trying to achieve, to become, to change. If we agreed on that, that is the root cause of this great mischief that is going on in the world, bringing about great confusion and so on, then we can think together over the problem. Right? As one observes, our action is based on ideas. Ideas are more important than action. Right? I wonder if you, please, we're talking together, I'm not just talking to myself. Ideas or ideals is the platform, is the background from which we act. Right? Whether those ideas are personal or evolved through great many centuries or sanctioned by organized religions, we live with ideas. Right? Ideas may be symbols, memories, experiences, conclusions. Ideas create values, right? Values which are satisfactory, desirable, worthwhile, have significance. And having established those values based on ideas, right, we act according to those values. And those values are created by thought. Can we proceed? Right? So our action is based on values. And these values are brought about by constant adjustment to circumstances, to one's character, to one's desire, to one's social, environmental condition. Right? So our actions are based on values which are the product of thought. Right? Right, sir? Can we go on? Because we're going to point out presently that a mind that has values is very limited. Because those values are created by thought, by desire, right? And therefore action is always limited. Right? And if we examine our actions, that is, whole of life is action. All life is action. Speaking, walking, thinking, acting from knowledge, responsibility, friendship, the whole of our existence is action. Whether that action is directed by a value or by an experience or sanctioned by society or culture and religion. Right? We are moving. Are we, right? So we are asking, this has been the pattern of our existence. Each person creating his own value. What is important, what's not important, what is worthwhile and not, what is comforting, what is desirable, and so on. So we are asking, is there an action which is not based on value? You understand? May we? So that is, as we said, our action is based either on past memories, past values, or present values, or future ideals. Right? That which should be, that which has been, and that which is. Yeah? So our action is a continuous, constant movement of the past through the present, modifying itself into the future. Then, I wonder if you're meeting, are we meeting each other? Yes, sir? Good. At least somebody. So our actions are always based on the past. There is no spontaneous action. Can we move along? Please, don't agree with me. Everybody is talking about more or less spontaneous action. There isn't such a thing. It is essentially based on past memories, past values, modifying itself constantly, but essentially rooted in the past. And therefore, there is no spontaneous action. And then one asks, what is correct action? If action is not based on the past, on values, because they limit action, because they are the outcome of thought, which is the result of knowledge, right? We've been through that. So is there action which is correct under all circumstances, not based on values? Am I putting the question rightly? Are you meeting with me? Because it's very important to find out if there is freedom in action. Now we think there is freedom in action because we can do what we want. That is the prevalent fashion. To do each one what he likes, without the father or the government on your back. And that freedom has led more or less to this present chaos, each one doing exactly what he wants. So one must find out for oneself what is right action. Not based on concepts, ideals, values, right? Do you want to find out? No, so this is not a game we are playing. It's not something that you do one this morning and forget all about it. It touches our daily life. And therefore it's very serious. And it's a very serious question to ask. Is there an action which is not based on Marxism or on Christianity or on Hinduism and all the rest of it, or on any human values which are the product of thought, right? Therefore one must ask this question, whether there is a right action under all circumstances. So one must go into the question, what is right? One will say, what I think is right. Or I have a certain belief, and according to that, I act, and that's right. Or I have experiences which have shaped my action, and therefore they're correct. Right? And we are pointing out, if one may, that all these such expressions of action is prejudice. a prejudice which has something common with ideals, right? I wonder if you're following all this. Your prejudices form your ideals. Whether those prejudices are carefully, culturally cultivated or religiously adopted, such action is essentially based on values. And we're asking, is there an action which is not based on any of this? Right? Because that is freedom. Otherwise it's like being tied to something, and therefore every action becomes corrupt. I wonder if you follow all this. If I am tied to a belief, naturally my action will be according to that belief, and therefore limited, and therefore corrupt. Right? You may not agree, but please examine it first before you agree or disagree. We are using the word corrupt, which means rompere. The root of that word is rompere, to break, to fragment, to bring about fragmentation. That's the root meaning of that word corrupt. So our actions are corrupt, never whole. And to find out what is correct action, one must be actually free from all values. Right? Please see the logic of it, or the sense of it. Now, what is correct action? Correct. The word correct means precise, actual, not distorted, which must be constant. Right? That's the meaning of that word correct. Not your meaning, give meaning to that word correct, or the speaker gives it. The dictionary gives that meaning, which means an action which is constant, which never varies under any circumstances, precise, not based on any romantic, sentimental imagination. Right? Are we following? Yes, sir? And is there such correct action? Action being not based on some principle, not based on some ideal, not the result of personal or cultivated values. Otherwise, it is corrupt action. Now we're going to find that out. A mind that is tied to an idea, to a concept, to some value, or to a person, action springing from that must always be corrupt. right? That is, if I am attached to a person, and that attachment is going to dictate my action, obviously. If I am attached or tied to a belief, my action will be according to that belief, and therefore my action is corrupt. If I act according to my experience, knowledge, and knowledge being always limited, my action will be corrupt. You understand what we are saying? It is totally different from everything that we have been said. And we are saying, is there an action which is incorruptible? And we say there is, which comes, please follow this now, which comes when you observe, not analyze, when you observe the consequences of values, how the values are created, how, when you are attached to an idea, concept, a person, such action is invariably destructive, corrupt, limited. If this is so, by observing, not analyzing, they come to an end. Am I making myself? That is, I'm attached, suppose I'm attached to a symbol, whether the symbol be in the church, or I've created my own symbol through mythology and so on and so on. Those symbols are created by thought. I'm attached to the symbol, and I act according to that symbol. The result is conflict, not only against your symbol, against your belief, but also conflict in my daily action. Right? I wonder if you see this. I observe this. I see this actual fact. Right? No? Un momento. I'm going to go into that. So, do we both of us see this fact? That as long as you are tied to anything, a person, a belief, a concept, an idea, to your own knowledge and experience, the outcome of that action must invariably bring conflict. Do we see that? All right, I'll put it differently. I'm a Jew. I hold on to that concept. The result is, you who are a Muslim, the Arab, we are at war with each other. Right? That's fairly simple, obviously observable. But if we go much deeper, inwardly, I may cling to a person because for various reasons. And the very attachment to that brings great deal of conflict fear, hate. Right? And without analyzing, can I observe the fact? We'll go into what we mean by observing. Do you observe without any distortion yourself? Observe. Not try to change what you see, not try to reason away what you see, or try to overcome what you see, or suppress what you see, but just to observe as you do in a mirror what you actually are. That is, can I observe my reaction, which is aggression? You understand? I'm taking that as an example. I am aggressive. God forbid. I am aggressive. Can I observe that? The cause of it, without analyzing, the expression in my face, in my voice, in my gesture, can I observe it? Without trying to justify it or give an excuse or try to say, I'm not. But just to observe. Can you do it? Are you doing it as we're talking? Take your own particular idiosyncrasy, your own particular character, your own particular attachment, and observe it. Which would become rather difficult because our minds are trained and educated to analyze. That is to find the cause through analysis and hope thereby to overcome the cause. Then, whereas we are saying that process of analysis will not free the cause. Whereas if you merely observe without any emotional reaction, see exactly as it is, let the fact tell the story rather than you tell the story about the fact. Is that okay now? Have I made that clear? We're always telling what to do about the fact. Right? It must not be, it must be, we must go into it and so on. But we never allow the fact to unfold itself. That's what we are saying. Observation is the unfolding of what is going on. Are you doing this as we are talking? You know, most of us are attached to a person, right? To our husband, to our children, to our something or other, to our priest, to a guru, to a system of meditation or whatever it is. Can you observe your attachment? Please, this is not group therapy. This is not a confessional. All that nonsense, it's too silly, all this. But we are saying, asking each other, can you observe your attachment? Of course you can. You become conscious of it. Then, if you observe it carefully, the immediate reaction is, why not? What's wrong with attachment? The consequences of attachment are fear, and therefore hate, jealousy, and therefore lack of love. These are the consequences, aren't they? No? You are very silent. Probably you are sitting next to your wife or husband. But if you observe it very carefully, without distorting what you actually see, that observation is the act of intelligence. I wonder if you get this. Right, sir? May I go on? Because we are coming to a point when you are going to, there is an action which is correct under all circumstances. And that is to observe the fact of what is actually happening without any distortion. Right? I'll show you something. That is, when we observe, is the fact that which is happening as attachment and the consequences of that attachment, when you observe, is the observer different from the thing he observes? You understood my question? When you are angry, at the moment of anger, there is no division between the observer and the observed, right? Right, sir? Right? Only a second later comes the division, right? I have been angry. You recognize the feeling of anger because you have had it before. So the division takes place the moment when the observer separates himself from the observed. I want you to see this. Right? No, please, this is serious if you want to go into it, because if you can see this, you will eliminate conflict altogether. Because conflict exists between the observer and the observed. Right? Am I using the words which you are not accustomed to? And therefore you find it rather puzzling? Now we just meet. I am attached to a person. If I am, I'm attached to a person. Is the attachment, please listen, is the attachment different from me? Or I am attachment? Do you understand, sir?
una risposta.
I am supplying you with energy. You see, you really don't want to face this. Therefore, you find lots of excuses. Because where there is attachment to a problem, to an idea, to an ideal, to a person, to a dogma, to a ritual, to an organization, to a certain institutions, there must be corruption. Right? And if I'm attached to my wife, there is absolute certainty of corruption. Because corruption means fear. Fear brings hate, conflict, jealousy, antagonism, which are all the expression of corruption, not the act of love. So do we see this non-analytically but factually? Now when you say I see it, is the seer different from that which he has seen? Are you following this? Huh? That is, where there is division, there must be conflict. That is law. That's a law. There's conflict between the Arab and the Jew, between the communist and the socialist, capitalist, and so on, so on, so on. The Hindu, the Muslim, Christian, follow? Where there is division, there must be conflict. Conflict is corruption. And we have lived with this norm, with this pattern, that the observer, the thinker, is different from the thought. So the thinker is always trying to dominate thought. You're following, right? So, but the thinker is thought. So, when we observe attachment towards somebody or something, a piece of furniture, is the person who is attached different from himself? The attachment. You understand what I'm saying? Obviously not. Therefore, when there is no division and therefore no conflict, the whole process of attachment comes to an end. Please test it. Don't accept a thing on anybody says, including myself. Test it. That is, see actually what you're attached to, tied to your name, to your family, to your brother, sister, father, wife, girl, boy, whatever it is, to the bishop or to the pope or to some other person. If you are, just observe it. But if you like to be attached, if you like all the consequences of the attachment, you're perfectly welcome. Nobody is going to stop you. But if you want to find out whether there is an action which is incorruptible, which is correct under all circumstances, then you have to be free from all values, from all attachment. Because when you observe attachment, it is intelligence that is seeing the whole process of it, not analysis. So, where there is intelligence, there is correct action. Intelligence is not knowledge, is not accumulated information. Where there is insight into the attachment, that insight is intelligence, and from that intelligence there is correct action. Right, sir? Don't look at me, not worth it. But look at yourself and find out. Because man has lived with corruption for a million years. And all his actions must be corrupt, must bring chaos, conflict. And his actions are based on ideals, on concepts, on values, which are all the product of thought. There is no divine absolute value. Even though the priests may say that. When they do say it, it is the activity of their own thinking. So, there is an action which is completely whole, completely incorruptible, in daily life, not somewhere in heaven. That is, can a human being live in this world with that intelligence? That intelligence is born out of insight, for an example, into attachment. Insight. Insight means having full comprehension of the whole process of attachment immediately. You understand what I'm saying? You all must have an insight into something or other occasionally, where that insight is not memory, is not the process of value or a conclusion. It is a second of complete comprehension of that which you see, totally. And that is the essence of intelligence. And that intelligence is not yours or mine, and therefore it's always acting correctly. Will you try it? Do it. Do it as we are sitting here. Not when you go home. As you are sitting here, observe yourself. Observe your action with regard to your wife, to your husband, to your neighbor, to your politics, to your religion, whatever it is. And can you have without analysis, a perception, a seeing the whole consequences and the cause of this attachment instantly, immediately. Because that implies the freedom from time. I must kilo heti. 19. We've got another 15 minutes more. As we said, the brain is the result of time, which nobody can deny. It has evolved through million years, from the most primitive cell to a very, very, very complex cells. And that has taken time, right? Which means evolution. And the brain is functioning according to the pattern of time, right? So this is all very simple if you give your mind thought to this, your mind to this. It's really quite simple. The brain functions in the pattern of time, in the mold of time. That is yesterday, today, and tomorrow. The sun sets and sun rises. Time as I will be, I hope to be, I want that, right? That's a movement of time. I look forward to meeting you tomorrow, which is time. Hope, having hope, is time, right? Right? So the brain operates, functions, because it has evolved through time in the process of time. Clear? Now, we have lived with that pattern for a million years. There is not only physical time, which is yesterday, today, and tomorrow, but also psychological time, inward time. We are talking about the inward time of the mind. So the brain, which is part of the mind, the brain functions, acts and responds, thinks in time. And that pattern has been established for a million years. And we are still pursuing that pattern. We live in that pattern. And if there is no end to time, you understand what I'm saying? The pattern will be repeated over and over and over again. You understand something, sir? Look, as we said the other day, I need time to become something. If I want to be a good chemist, I need time. If I want to learn a language, I need time. If I want to be a good driver, I must have time. Acquire knowledge, skill, action. There, I need time to learn a language, and so on. And that same pattern, principle is applied psychologically. You follow? I need time to be good. I need time to become unselfish. When you say I must have time to become unselfish, that's the very essence of selfishness. So our brain is operating always in time. And time is movement, right? From here to there, physically. And also time is to become something, psychologically. And so it's a movement. I am good, I'm not quite good, but I will be good. That's a movement from what is to what should be. Movement is thinking also, right? So, time is thinking. I want to pass. And that is the pattern on which we have lived. And that pattern has not changed man, though he has lived for 1,000,000 years and more. Therefore, is there a possibility of breaking that pattern? You understand my question? No, you don't. These two, yes? We say there is. If you follow this, you will see it. Analysis is a process of time, right? Right, sir? Therefore, I have an insight into the analysis, and therefore it's the ending of analysis. Right? Insight is not of time. I have an insight into my desire, and into my desire for something. And in that, the process of desire, for that either can be analyzed, examined, and come to a conclusion. But if I observe the whole movement of desire, that very observation is insight which is not of time. I'll put it, look, sir. We all know we are attached to something or other. Right? Can you end it immediately? If you end it instantly, immediately, that's the ending of time. But if you say, I'll go into it, I will analyze it, I will see it is right, it's wrong, it should be, it should not be, then you are repeating the pattern. Right, sir? The ending of time is tremendously important, because that is actual freedom from what has been. I won't forget it. Am I forcing you to think in a particular direction? Because I happen to be energetic? vehement, or we are both of us moving in the same direction. Because, you see, sir, this has been one of the problems of humanity. You may not have gone into it. Man has always asked whether there is an end to time. Time must have a stop. And we think time has a stop through some kind of meditation. They have gone into this very great deal, both perhaps little in the Western world, but great deal in the Eastern world. So they say time has a stop only when thought can be controlled. You understand? Because thought is a movement in time. Thought is time. Whereas we are saying it can end when there is observation without distortion of what is actually going on, which is the actual reaction in yourself. Reaction to attachment. Why you are attached? What is the consequence? To see the whole of that immediately is the ending of time. I can't repeat it again. Is this somewhat clear? No, it must be clear. We are using common words. Either you're not exercising your own brain, or you're merely persuaded, pushed around. But if you say, look, I want to find out, I want to observe if I'm attached to anything, and you soon discover you are. And see the consequences of that. Fear, hatred, anxiety, jealousy, all the conflict that goes on. And if you say, I'm used to it, let it go, I don't mind putting up with it, then you are just, living in perpetual conflict, which is what every human being is doing. But if you want to end that conflict, that can be ended only immediately, which is to see it without any distortion. Finito. We'll meet on Sunday.